When George came to live at the house, he was 6 years old. He and his 5-year-old brother, Stephen, enjoyed watching their reflections in the grand fountain in the foyer of the house. One day, the boys were looking at their reflections when, to George's horror, Stephen's face was replaced by the reflection of the head of a skeleton. For a few seconds, the boys saw the skull, and then it was gone. Later, George came to believe that this was a portent of his brother's brief existence. Less than a month later, Stephen died of a childhood disease. To this day, George believes that Stephen has still not left the house. George may be correct, because there are indications that a young boy haunts Bellaroy. Years ago, a contractor was working in the yard when he and his partner looked up and saw a young boy with blonde hair observing them from a second-floor window. Told that there were no children in the house, they were shocked to learn that the child they had seen was looking out the window of Stephen's old room. One evening, George was hosting a dinner party when the sound of a loud crash from the gallery startled the group. A picture of Stephen seems to have ripped itself off the wall without breaking the wire that held it in place. The hook remained in the wall, but somehow the picture had been tossed across the gallery. George shrugged off the incident because he had grown used to his brother's ghostly pranks throughout the years. It was just Stephen having a bit of fun. Stephen is not the only ghost haunting this venerable structure. George believes that his mother, Henrietta, also inhabits her former home. George invited psychic Judith Hames to visit the mansion and received more than he bargained for. Over time, they became friends, and one evening Judith informed him that there were a number of spirits visiting the mansion at the time. She began to describe a woman who was repeating the name Longfellow over and over again. This meant nothing to Judith, but George perked up. His mother had been fond of reading Longfellow to him when he was a child. Judith told George that the woman also kept repeating the phrase, the children's hour. Again, George understood. The children's hour had been in one of Longfellow's poems that he and his mother had read together many times. After the evening was over, George was puzzled. Why had his mother taken the time to contact him, only to remind him of an old poem? After the last of his dinner guests left, George retired to the study to read. While he sat resting, he noticed a book that was pulled out from the shelf. He started to push it back in and froze when he read the title on the spine. It was a collection of Longfellow's poems. George pulled out the book, obviously not opened for years, and brushed away the dust. Written in an old envelope which fell out were the words, "To my son Meade in the event of my death," in his mother's fine script. With shaking fingers, he opened the missive, but it was empty. What did it mean? When Judith returned to the house, Henrietta made her presence known again. Through Judith, she told George that she had stashed away some antiques throughout the house, and she wanted to tell George about them. George found a set of silver candlesticks in the rafters of the storeroom, just where she had indicated. Then Judith informed George that his mother wanted him to know about the secret drawer in an old desk in the house. George located the desk and found the drawer. Inside was an incredible find. An old, gunpowder-smudged Confederate flag lay there. George realized that this was a Confederate flag that his ancestor, General George Meade, had taken during the Battle of Gettysburg. Now Henrietta, on a roll, exposed one more secret. There was a chest in the attic that the pair must find. Inside, they found papers showing that George's great-grandfather, Richard Meade, had loaned the young American government $5 million in 1819 to help it purchase Florida from Spain. There was also a promissory note for repayment of the loan with interest, more than 170 years of interest by now. George began work on having the government honor the debt to his family. It is little wonder that the house, filled with ancient artifacts and historic pieces, houses several spirits. George has seen an old woman hobbling through the building using a cane. A monk in tan robes was also seen, and this is believed to be an ancestral spirit from the family homeland. Bellaroy's grandfather clock seems to house the spirit of its former owner, Thomas Jefferson. The ghost of the founding father has been seen near the clock. The one ghost at Bellaroy that George does not trifle with is Amanda, who is known to haunt the Blue Room. Amanda's spirit seems attached to an antique chair in the room, and she is not a pleasant spirit. In fact, George believed that she